All right, welcome to another recording of the Elevate Media Podcast. I am Chris Anderson, your host, and today I'm going to have to be careful with what I say because we're talking to a lawyer. No, just kidding, but we are talking to a lawyer. We got James Grant on the show today. We're going to be diving into his journey of how he's built his successful law firm and how he's done it a little bit out of the ordinary. So, James, welcome to the Elevate Media Podcast today.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me. You don't have to be worried. I won't hold you to the line too much with your words, but
Okay.
words are kind of a big deal in my line of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what even got you into this line of work, with personal energy and litigation lawyer stuff?
Man, my story has taken so many different turns. I went from being a civil engineer to thinking I was going to do patent law to ending up in a firm that did every type of law there was, to running my own firm and finding a narrow focus to where we help other personal injury lawyers make more money faster and with less stress. So it's been a wild journey to come to the niche that we've ended on.
Yeah, and that's an interesting sector. It's something I didn't really even realize was a thing. So you help other lawyers with cases, right? Am I tracking on that?
No, I mean that's exactly how it works, and that's a common misconception, because a lot of people, especially when they get in an accident, they call the name and number that they hear on the radio, they see on the buses, on the billboards, TV, radio, all that stuff. And those firms are actually really good at the first part of a case. There's two phases to a personal injury case. You have a pre-litigation phase where most of the time the insurance company is able to resolve the case, but there's some cases where the insurance company doesn't do the right thing, and the only way to move it forward is to file a lawsuit. And if a law firm is run like a business and they've got a great business flow for handling those pre-litigation cases, a lot of time it's more valuable to them and the client if they stay in that lane, and then our firm actually helps them and their clients, because that's all we do as well. So we're kind of just tag teaming the case together in different stages and really able to maximize recovery on a lot of different ends.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they're basically, when they get to the point that's kind of outside of their bread and butter, their sweet spot, they kind of outsource, or they team up with you guys, and you come in and you get your specialty, and you get things done. So it's a win-win-win, really.
It's a win-win for the client 100%, because they're getting a specialist, number one, in that first stage. And then when it comes to litigation, they're getting a litigation specialist and a team of trial attorneys, where that's all we do. And that's what we're good at. So it's one of those deals where, well, when you go to the doctor, you want to have specialists along the way. You don't necessarily want to have your primary care physician, doing an operation. They're going to refer you out to the specialist. And it's the same way it works with us.
Okay. Interesting. So how is that starting out? Because I don't know, but is that just like a normal thing? Is there kickback from other law firms that I don't want to work with someone else? Like, we'll just kind of what did that look like starting out to build these relationships?
Yeah, I mean, so this is something that's not super common. This is we are I don't like to say unicorn, because no one in business is a unicorn. Everyone kind of is going through the same stuff, but we have a very, very, very large market share, and we have a unique value proposition that differentiates us from a lot of the competition that we might have in this space.
Okay.
But there are personal injury law firms out there that do what we do, and we kind of call it referral work. Another attorney is going to refer us a case, and then we're going to litigate it, and we're going to resolve it for them. But within what we've done, when any type of business is trying to set themselves apart, you can't sit back and be like, well, I give the greatest service and my clients love me. Like, that's not objective. No one cares about that stuff. You have to have something that's objective, that's an offering that they can look and say, oh, when I compare you to this firm, you are objectively different. And our difference maker was that if we're going to set out to truly help other law firms, then we can't compete with them at the same time. So our commitment to our partners is, we're not going to spend any money on digital ads, Facebook, Google, billboards, buses, radio, TV, none of that stuff, because we're not actually going to go after your clients being the people that are injured in an accident today. Okay. We want the case that you can't resolve, so that way we're building a symbiotic relationship, as opposed to working a case with a firm and a partner. We'll split the fee, but then I take that money and invest it in a pre-lit campaign, to where now I'm competing with them and also using their money to drive up their cost of acquisition. So when we cut that out, we kind of created a very large market share with no one really wants to hop in our space, because they see the bright and shiny objects over here of the new cases, and we just want to build relationships.
Gotcha. So you basically said, hey, we're not trying to take out the middleman. Like, we want you to still be there, and we're just kind of an extension of what you do.
Yep. 100%.
So you save money with marketing that way, because it's all kind of word of mouth, referral, and of course, probably reaching out to firms.
Oh, yes. No, our marketing has taken on an entirely different plan. Most law firms are very focused on a lot of the digital outreach, because that's really how you get the most exposure to people. You have your network of, close family, friends, former clients, current clients, and that can sustain a lot of firms. But once you start, getting into the millions of dollars in revenue, you really have to start spending a lot of money in the digital space to acquire, those new leads and qualify them in that. With us, we're now a B2B business development marketing firm, effectively on the marketing side. So it's all about building relationships with other lawyers, and that's going to breakfast, going to lunch, going and playing golf, going to ball games, doing other things with other lawyers so that they can establish that know, like, and trust, because that's who you do business with. So it's entirely different than most other lawyers when you think of how other lawyers market.
Yeah. And I like that perspective. So with you, you mentioned like taking a ball game, taking them to golf, taking breakfast. How do you approach, these individuals? For those listening who might have never done a cold outreach or try to connect with someone new that's within their, target market as far as an audience, like especially B2B with service, how did you kind of walk that journey with them to get them even on the golf course, because I love golf. And so, yeah, what's your process there? Is it just kind of like, hey, I have this offer, we do this, or do you approach it in a different way?
So a lot of it is, there's definitely a lot of effectively cold calling, cold emailing, but at the same time, you have to leverage your network as well. Even though there's not a lot of other personal injury lawyers in the state of Georgia, there's still several thousand. Yeah. So there's a lot of prospects just in my state, and there's actually lawyers that are in all the surrounding region that still practice in Georgia, because, for instance, a client may live in South Carolina, but they work in Georgia. They get injured on the way to work in Georgia, but they go home and they call their lawyer in South Carolina. That can happen, but if they need litigation, they'll call me. So there's a lot of people that are out there, but you have to be able to leverage first your close connections. And that's where we started. Probably for the first year and a half of doing this, is just leveraging our connections, because once you get into somebody else's room, then you get access to their room and their room and their room. And all of a sudden you now have the ability to say, well, I know John, and John introduced me to Fred, and Fred introduced me to Jennifer, and Jennifer. So that way you're building the timeline to the people that you're connecting with, as opposed to just the true cold calls and cold emails where it's like, who is this person? So that's really probably the biggest thing in the B2B space, is leveraging connections, because connections start to build that know, like, and trust faster, as opposed to, just cold emails, cold calls.
Yeah. So with that, do you kind of just, as you're connecting with people, hey, do you want to just go play golf? And then of course, in those conversations, it just comes up, hey, what do you do, kind of thing. It's not like as a direct conversation.
Yeah. And also you have to think about it from the perspective of what's in it for me. Everyone that you're pitching, so to speak, they have to sit back and be like, well, why would I do this? What am I going to get out of it? So you have to offer something. And generally the offer is something simple as, hey, let me take you out to lunch. Let me go buy you lunch. Let me go buy you breakfast. And then from there, you can at least in a 45 hour and a half conversation, you can figure out pretty quick if you're going to make a connection with this person. Yeah. And it's not to say that you have to have a connection on a personal level with everyone that you do business with, but those are obviously going to be your strongest leads. Those are going to be your strongest relationships for the future, because again, this is a long-term play. This isn't something where you're looking for a quick pop of, hey, I want this one-time customer, and then that's it. You're looking for the lifetime value, especially on the B2B side of business. So with that, the people that you have the strongest connection with and relationships with are the ones that you pursue the easiest, and just, give them something that, hey, here's a free meal. Let's, what, $70 for a nice lunch somewhere. It's not that much, but it at least gives you the offering to figure out what they do, how you can work together. And then from there, hey, let's go play golf, the next week, or, hey, let's go to this ball game, or, do you like this concert? Hey, come to the concert. Let's go and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think it's good to look at it from that perspective, because I know a lot of people, they just try to push like right away. Like I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn that's like, "Hey, I think you would like this. This is what we do." I'm like, "You haven't even asked. Like you don't even know." Like it's just a straight pitch out of the gate, and that's just like when I see those, I just either delete them or don't respond,
Yeah.
because it's like it doesn't work that way. We want to build a relationship, like you're saying, and that's why I love podcasting too, because I mean, you just are trying to learn from someone. You're kind of putting them on the pedestal to your audience, and it opens the door to build a relationship and be able to just see what everyone's about, which I think is another great tool as well.
Well, and I think at the same time, you make the point of you have different people across different service industries.
Hmm.
It's really easy for me as a lawyer to go talk to another lawyer
Yeah.
because we automatically have something in common right there. Even if I'm a CPA, I go to another CPA. We've been through that same exam. We've done the same thing. So we understand each other, at least conceptually. So it makes that introduction and, hey, what's wrong with another CPA taking another CPA to lunch? So
Right.
like when you start doing things within your own service industry, you automatically have a leg up on everyone else. Because to your point of LinkedIn, if some just random marketer DMs me on LinkedIn as opposed to another lawyer, well, hey, I'm at least gonna throw something behind that because maybe they have something actually to offer as opposed to this unknown quantity.
Yeah. So when you're starting out with that, I mean, that's something that's obviously learned, excuse me, learned along the way. Did you have any of those moments where you're like, this isn't working? Something's got to give. We got to shift something. And what was that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily the process, but it's the
Hmm.
plan. A
Hmm.
lot of
Yep.
times, and we've been with a business coach since 2018, and it's been the greatest thing ever. But
Awesome.
sometimes we just fall off the wagon, so to speak, and we don't plan things out like we should. And in this instance, we kind of like, well, this is just going to work. It's going to be fine. And we didn't truly plan. We didn't have
Mm.
the true input of all the data that we needed to where when we finally made some adjustments, we're like, oh, if we would have just looked back, we would have seen that we should have made this adjustment 6 months ago. And it's just little things like that.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to planning and tracking and being able to pivot. Because if you don't do that, then you really just are going on kind of gut and feel, and that never works in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. You could be, taking action. You could be taking initiative on it, but on the wrong thing, said in the wrong way. So I think, you know, one, like you said, I had a business coach, having a mentor, have somebody that can kind of externally say, hey, well, that doesn't seem to be doing the right thing. And then, being able to pivot and shift and adapt as you go. I think that's a good one to think on, because on our journey, like, you never know what's going to come. You never know what's going to happen. Like, who would have thought ChatGPT would have done what it did and blew up? And
Yeah.
there's so much stuff going on in the world. You never know what's next. So, along your journey, I'm sure, has ChatGPT, done anything crazy within your industry?
Man, I love AI.
Yeah.
This stuff is phenomenal. It's amazing. It is going to revolutionize the legal industry. Now, with that, it's going to cause a lot of problems because it's going to put a whole lot of people out of business.
Mm.
Because there's so many, and especially with lawyers, lawyers are notorious for hating technology, hating financial controls and metrics and like objective science, just because we like the practice of law.
Mm.
And the practice of law is very consistent. But when you throw in these disruptors, a lot of people just get scared. And I'm seeing the writing on the wall, 6 months, a year ago, where it's like, we have to hop on this train now, because if we adapt AI into our firm, we're going to be light years ahead of the firms that adapt it within the next 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. And even the insurance companies as well. Those suckers move, super, super slow. They're still operating on systems from the early 2000s. So if we can get an advantage, bring it on. But yeah, I love this stuff.
Yeah, I saw a video the other day, someone talking about that. He's on the Joe Rogan podcast. I forget the guest's name, but he was saying how he went to Chat GPT and he had a couple questions that he was going to ask his lawyer. And he asked the same thing to Chat GPT, and then he called his lawyer, which charges $600 per hour or whatever, in his case. And he said that the answers were eerily similar. He's like, well, there goes one expense I don't have to do. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. And I didn't know from your perspective if you see that as a negative or even like a slippery slope for people who want to utilize that versus actually calling a lawyer?
So I think for other lawyers, potentially that is super scary,
Hmm.
but it gets us away from the hourly billing model where we just have to milk cases. Now, my firm, we don't do hourly
Mm,
billing, so that's not necessarily a problem for us. But
yeah.
when you're billing hourly, a lot of times you're paying for routine, for administrative things that can be automated, that can be delegated, you can use AI to help speed up the process. Because really, we're all about objective results.
Hmm.
When you hire a lawyer, you aren't paying for the time that they put in. You aren't paying for anything other than give me this desired result. And actually, the more efficient you make the process and the quicker you're able to deliver a result, the better your firm, the better your clients, the better everyone's going to be off. So that's why I think the implementation of this is really going to be a disruptor in the legal field.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. It's definitely gonna shake stuff up in a lot of things. And like you said, if you're not on board, if you don't utilize this as a tool it is, you're gonna get left behind, which is crazy. So, and to shift gears a little bit with that, I'm curious on your journey. Have you ever had any moments that were kind of like that kick in the gut, that wind knocked out of you moment where you're like, oh my gosh, like, are we gonna be able to rebound from this? Like, I never saw that coming. Like, I don't know. You hear stories about people with partners or trusting someone and it backfires. And I don't know if you've had any random moments like that within your journey.
I mean, there have been moments where you look at the situation and you're like, how did we get here? Or what controls did we not put in place to end up along this way? Fortunately, I'm in a partnership with my business partner since 2015, and
Oh,
we're in a great relationship. And
good.
there's not many, especially in the legal field, there's not many law firms that have partnerships that last for a long time.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of lawyers tend to be very aggressive in their approach of they know how to do everything the right way and they're the source of all truth. Where Mark and I have learned that, like, he's good at this, I'm good at that, we're
Mm,
able to come together on a lot of things. And so being able to have a trusted business partner and then surrounding yourself with trusted business advisors, it helps you to make smarter objective decisions.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, early on we had absolutely no clue what we were doing. um, that's with most people in most service industries anyway, because we go to school, we are trained how to do something, how to think like a lawyer, and some of how to practice law, but we're
Mm,
given no business skills. So that's really where most of our failings were. Obviously, we were still able to generate revenue and grow our firm, but we didn't do it the right way at all. I mean, we were
mm,
falling into the mantra of, oh, I'm working 80 hours a week and I'm working these late nights serving my clients. And then when you sit back and look back, and it's like, no, that's not a badge of honor to wear. And then if you actually talk with an individual that's thinking that, and talk with their client and ask him the question of, well, who would you want working your case? Do you want the attorney that got 8 hours of rest and had a meal with their family and is feeling emotionally well and has good mental health? Or do you want the attorney that's working 80, 90 hours a
mm,
week, wearing it as a badge of honor, working your case?
mm.
Well, you ask them that question, they say, obviously, I want the attorney that has strong mental health. But in the service industry, we don't think like that. We think it's great to be, pushing ourselves beyond what we're really capable of doing, and thinking that's somehow going to actually benefit ourselves and our clients. And
Yeah.
that's probably where we made a lot of failings early on.
Mm. So how did you shift that? Obviously, because I feel like that is like you said, a badge of honor. So how did you go and actually make those shifts? Was it tough to make that shift? Did it take some time, or was it just like, hey, we're changing this because this is not how we want to be, and you kind of just implemented it?
Yeah, I mean, that was the first 3 years of our lives.
Okay.
And when we started coaching in 2018, that's what really helped us and changed us. And I tell everybody that's interested in coaching is, if you have started a business and are in that business and then you later bring on a coach, it's going to suck. Like, there's nothing that's going to be fun about it, because you go from working in your business, generally a lot of hours. Let's say you're working 60 hours a week. That's a lot of time that you're devoting to that business. Then you bring on a business coach. Guess what? you're still working 60 hours a week in your business, and now you have to learn to work on your business another 20 hours. So your time requirement goes up exponentially. So there has to be a buy-in for you, for your family, for your team, for those that are around you that are going to support you through it. Because for the first 6 to 18 months, it's going to suck.
Yeah.
But for using the cliche term of you're investing in your future self. So if you make that early investment in yourself, your future self is going to thank you, because again, that investment is going to pay dividends down the line.
Yeah, it's kind of like the quote, sacrifice now so you don't have to sacrifice later, kind of thing. And it's definitely very valid, especially early on when you have to be in both, in the business and on it at the same time. So, how can people, what would, for someone working like service to service, B2B, what would some tips you give them to help them kind of have guardrails up so they don't, get too far off to sacrifice, their emotional stability, their mental health?
So one of the biggest thing is looking for a mentor and an advisor, and don't look kind of like you look with social media. Social media, we all post the best and brightest generally, but we don't post our failures. We don't post, when things are tough. Those are the ones that you probably actually want to find as your advisors. You want to find the person that in your service industry that they're able to take a vacation for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time, and their business still operates and runs.
Yeah.
You don't want the person that's posting all these late night photos and doing all this late night work, because again, is the business revolving around them, or does the business operate outside of them? You want to find people in your profession, in your area, that are running a true business, that they're not just running a hobby that kind of revolves around themselves. And when they're there, business is great, but when they go away, nothing's getting done. That's probably the biggest step of finding somebody that is where you want to be, so that then you can learn to grow. And then as you grow, maybe you outgrow them, you find again that next person that's where you want to be. Every time you're always reevaluating your stage of where you are and finding those mentors at those next levels, because the way you run a $500,000 business is not the way you run $1 million business. It's not the way you run a 5 million, 10 million, and so on. So as you're growing and as you're scaling, you have to find new rooms and new people to be around, to surround yourself, or else you're going to kind of fall back a lot of times.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge, crucial piece, is looking at someone for where they are and where you want to go. Because like you said, all we see on social media really is the positive, like the good stuff. And if you can, I think if you can find someone who's, a couple chapters ahead of you on the journey, that's the most important thing. Because if someone's not doing what you want to do, then why really listen to them? So with that, how do you don't do traditional marketing, you don't run ads, things like that, you do word of mouth. Is there any place you think in the future, or maybe you are utilizing social media at all for your firm, that's not maybe to gain clients, but is there still a piece to be had within that for you?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, social media definitely has its place, and you can still target a lot of things to lawyers. We have a large portion of our website specifically geared towards other personal injury lawyers. We give away a lot of our templates because, again, my thought is a rising tide raises all ships. So I think that our work product is very good. I'm willing to share that with anybody else that wants it. And, they get inserted into a drip campaign and inserted into our funnel, and maybe they can become a client of ours, maybe not, but we're still giving, because again, the whole thought of the more you give, the more you're going to get back. You can't constantly be pitching and selling and taking. You have to offer something. You have to be a source of truth, a source of authority. And you don't get that by just dumping a bunch of money in the Google machine. You can, but at the same time, I think the longer play of building an organic base is really from that giving area.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I agree on that. I think you get the most return the more you give. And so I like that you mentioned that you still use basically a lead magnet with your templates and things like that, giving that value, and then they get into your drip campaign. From your perspective, because everyone comes at it different with their drip campaigns or their email sequences. Is there a secret sauce you found so far? Like, we send out 7 emails, and you by the fifth one is kind of the gold mine that people actually schedule a call. Is there a number that you've seen by chance? I'm just curious with that.
No, I mean it's variable. We have seen success since we really gone back in time almost. We used to use like really fancy emails with like all cool graphics and backgrounds. And now it's just they're super short, but they're just very simple, very genuine emails. And it doesn't come off as selling. It just comes off, hey, here's some cool information. By the way, if you'd like more, if you see some value in this, let's just have a free strategy session. Let's just chat. Let's just talk. Hey, you want me to take you out to lunch? I'll come take you out to lunch. And that's literally it. And again, we've still built it out through 6 or 7 different series in the email campaigns, but I think those have actually had more of a response as opposed to the high quality, high production emails, which sometimes comes off as just selling right from the get-go.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good thought to think about too. Keeping it simple, I think, and you can always improve as you go and add little things. And plus, those listening, a lot of them are doing a lot of that, wearing a lot of hats, and so a simpler email to create, at least to get it out there, will be better than trying to make it really fancy and not doing it because there's too many things you're trying to create.
Oh yeah, no, I mean you make a wonderful point. Like, it's so easy to just get so focused on refining it and making sure that it's perfect. Perfection never gets done. It never gets sent out. Just do something, put it out there, and then test it, and then see what works. And then if it doesn't, okay, then you can adjust and adapt. But if you wait for perfection, you're never going to start.
For sure. Oh, so good there. So James, if someone's starting out, service-based, business to business, they're trying to gain traction, what would be the one tip besides networking with people that you would give them to help them grow?
I think it's going to transcend both businesses, from whether you're B2B or whether you're B2C. The most important thing I would focus on is, what are your core values? What do you and your company stand for? And if you can come up and have a set and say, this is what we stand for, this is what we as XYZ company, this is what we're going to offer, this is what we're going to deliver, this is what we're going to stand for, and roll that out to your whole team and get your team's buy-in, and then everything goes back to those decisions, it makes everything easier. Because rather than your time having to be wrapped up in answering everyone's question, it's just everyone gets directed. All right, do I have a question? Go back to the core values. Does this further or accomplish one of the core values? If yes, do it. If not, don't do it. And then all of a sudden you start building a company that means something, that stands for something, as opposed to just necessarily delivering a service. I think that really can help every business scale infinitely, by having strong core values and brand promises that are objective, that everyone, whether they're internal or their clients or their potential clients, or they're just anybody that's out there, they can see and look at and say, I know what this company now stands for. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, I love that. And I couldn't agree more on that. So James, this has been great conversation. I've really appreciated you taking time out to speak to all this. And, if you provided some great value to the listeners, I know I've learned from you. So again, if people are trying to connect with you, want to learn more from you, where's the best place for them to go?
Best place to go is our website. And we've got a toll-free number as well. It's 833-4-THE-WIN. That's also our URL, or you can also look it up at Georgia Trial Attorneys. That's our name, gtakg.com. You can find us on the internet. You can call us. You can set up a free strategy session with me. I'm happy to talk with anybody.
Awesome. Well, yeah, if you guys need James or just want to keep learning from him, definitely get connected. Again, James, thanks so much for being on the Elevate Media podcast today.
Thanks, Chris.